and welcome back to this week's episode of Maximum Octane. This is your host, Kim Hickey, here today. Joining me today is a fantastic person. I just adore him. I've had the pleasure of working with him for years with his business, and watching his growth has just been amazing, and not only professionally, but personally, and watching him get married and start a family and all of those great things. So joining me today is Mr. Lee Anderson. How are you, Lee?
I am pretty good, Kim. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm so happy you decided to come on. So Lee is the COO for Integrity Auto Care in Illinois. They have two locations, one in South Beloit. Did I say that right? And one in Belvedere.
Beloit.
South Beloit. South Beloit and Belvedere.
Yeah, it's French.
Beloit, like a beignet. What are those donuts or something? Beignets or something?
Oh yeah. The beignets or whatever.
Beignet, yeah. So fun fact, one of these things before we get started is we were at dinner with a 20, I think it was a 20 group situation or something, and Lee was telling me about they use beet juice to take care of the roads there to get rid of the ice. And I just absolutely didn't believe him. And I had to look it up because he was explaining how much worse it is for the vehicle and the undercarriage and all than the salt. And I thought he was pulling my leg because he's got a great sense of humor and is kind of a jokester. And so, but the beet juice was real, people. The beet juice, it was real.
That was real. Really corrode your vehicle. For sure.
That's just crazy. Well, I appreciate you spending time with me today because you're actually traveling and in Baltimore right now to get some education and help take yourself to the next level and meet with your 20 group. And so I really appreciate that you're like, okay, I'll do it from the hotel. I won't have all my stuff, but we'll be there. So as I said a little bit earlier, one of the things that I've gotten to see is Lee's professional growth, but his personal growth. And you have had quite a journey. You've had quite a journey with your both personal and professional growth. And you just have such a wonderful family now. And I had asked what you wanted to talk about, and you wanted to share your amazing story. So I'm going to just turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kim. So joining ATI, we do these goal posters. So I'm a very firm believer in the law of attraction and manifestation. So it was right around 2016 where on my goal poster, I said, hey, I'm going to get a Harley, I'm going to get a house, I'm going to get a baby. So my wife and I have been struggling with infertility we've been together for almost 18 years. We've been struggling with it for 15 plus years. So, I've always wanted a child, so I put it out in the universe, and I really believe in manifestation. So you can ask my father. I believe it 110%, and I say it like I will say customer's name 3 times to one of my advisors, and sure enough, they will call like within the next day.
So I don't want to take away the importance of the baby, manifesting the baby, but you literally put on there, I want a Harley. And then you had called me, I don't know, weeks later, and you're like, hey, guess what, Kim? And I said, what? He's like, I just won a full dress Harley or something. I was like, what? You just won a Harley? So
it was right around the same time too. So it was, so I bought a house, I won a Harley, all within 2 years, and then we started our adoption process. And believe it or not, it only literally took us a year. Most of the time it takes, if you talk to people, it takes 3 to 5 years just to connect with the birth mom and actually get a kid adopted. So it is a struggle. We did with Catholic Charities. They wanted us to promote ourselves by ourselves, so we did a lot of Facebook. So talking to birth moms is kind of, I referred it to as like speed dating. Like you have to step on eggshells and like get to know them and all that. And you can't make them mad because then they're out of your life. So we actually went through two birth moms. They both failed. And then we had a couple.
What does that
we
mean, Lee? For
contacted.
people that are not familiar, what does that mean that it failed?
They just don't pick you.
Okay.
There was one that she ended up keeping the baby. So that me and my wife on a whim, it was spring break time. We went down to Alabama. It's the first time I've been to Alabama, and believe it or not, this is part of my adoption story because I'll never forget it. We stayed at this Airbnb out in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and I'm not kidding. Tiger King galore. This guy, the owner of this Airbnb, had a lion, a full-grown lion, next door to us, and we woke up hearing this lion roaring. So, but anyways, that birth mom didn't go through. She ended up keeping it, and she cut ties with us. So it's a very emotional ride too.
And all of it's emotional, right? Because you mentioned about struggling with infertility for 15 years. And then you all did such a wonderful thing, I think, like the family, and you're doing some fundraisers and some other things, and just such a clever, we bought like puzzle pieces, and you did so much with that and made it a community. You know, it gave new meaning to it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, you had so many people supporting you and Brittany and rooting for you and wanting to help make this dream of yours happen. And we just knew you would be such amazing parents, and the heartbreak that we all were feeling. And I can't even imagine on your end, what an emotional roller coaster and drain that was.
It is a very, very big emotional roller coaster. Just to have the birth mom say, yeah, you're going to have this baby. And then the next moment, boom, it's not yours. And then they just don't even, some of them just don't even talk to you. They just block you and don't want to talk to you. So
I'm going to cry right now.
The second birth mom, she was a scammer. So you have a lot of scammers out there if you guys do it by yourselves. That's why, Catholic Charities we did it the less expensive way. You pay more to basically not have those scammers. So we had a scammer who actually we gave money to. They want money from you, and you got to keep them happy. But you have to. They tell you not to, and we did. We fell for it, and at the end, she wanted $40,000, and this is the state of Virginia, and the birth mom can ask for whatever she wants, and whatever she wants, she can get just for you to get that baby.
And so the legality of that, my understanding is from what I've read, there's a fine line with that and how they ask for it and what you're paying for, because you can't buy a baby, right? But if it's something for care for the birth mother or the child, then that's okay. And so I don't think anybody listening wouldn't be in the same shoes as you of if you have a birth mom that you're working with and they have a baby for you and they're promising you a baby, and they say, I need money for this to make sure your baby's healthy. I mean, who the heck wouldn't hand over money? My gosh.
And then she was going to go to Utah, because in Utah, they push that, they call it like to get whatever money you want for your baby, for that baby. So that's when we cut the straw, and we just said, we're done. We were going to stop for a while. We were going to call it quits.
You were just so emotionally drained.
Oh, yeah.
And that puts a strain on your marriage, right? I mean, that has to put a strain on your marriage or personal. Pardon?
Yeah, it's just sad. It makes you depressed. You know what I mean? Just, you can't have children and people just do that to you. It's just insane.
Take advantage.
I have a big heart, and I would give anything to anybody, and I would never take advantage of anybody, because that's just not who I am. And then to have people like that, So, and then
I want to punch
like,
her. I want.
oh, and then back to that manifestation. We were done. And I said, no, we're not done. We're going to try one more time. We're going to do this. We're going to get this. And that Sunday is when this all happened and this all went down between that birth mom. And literally, I kid you not, that Wednesday, I found out that there was a baby in North Carolina. And that birth mom, the actual nurse, called and said, "Hey, there's this baby down here. Would you adopt it? If you don't come down here, he's going to be in the system." And then, babies, he was a newborn, they don't get adopted out until they're 2 or 3 years old. So, all I could think about is I'm not letting that little man be part of the system. So I said yes. The birth grandma called us on that Thursday and said, "Hey, you better get down here." And then, because it was like,
I remember getting that text from you.
Yeah,
I remember getting that text from you, and you're like, "We're going to get a baby right now." And I was like, "What? When did this come up?" And you were like, "We just got the call, and
it was so last minute." So we live like an hour outside of Chicago, right? An hour and a half. So we left Thursday night at like 5, and my wife Brittany drove for 4 hours, so we got to about like Indianapolis, and she was like, "Well, I can't drive anymore." So I'm like, "I'm driving." Like, all I could think in the back of my head is, I am not letting that little man be by himself. So I drove. I slept for probably like half an hour. So I had probably like 3 or 4 monsters, but I couldn't sleep. So the best feeling in my entire life, besides getting married to my wife, was going through the Appalachian Mountains, sunrise. It's like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and that sunrise coming up. And then I was like, I'm it's a few hours, and I get to hold this little man in my hands. I'm just, it makes me cry just thinking about it.
I'm crying now. And your story has a wonderful to it, and it's not an ending because you're continuing. But before you get to that part, one of the things I think is important is a lot of people see somebody wanted to adopt a child, or they had a fertility issue, then they have this beautiful baby, and they don't think or realize what people went through emotionally. And you had to deal with a lot, and that has to take a toll on your marriage. And I don't care how close you are, how good of a marriage, but to be constantly in a state of not knowing things and disappointment and depression, like, how did that affect your marriage when that was going on?
We're pretty strong about it. My wife was really upset about it, and I try to be the rock, her rock, and like hold her up. I try to be positive as much as I can. I know that's not physically possible sometimes, but I really believe positivity breeds positivity, and I don't like to be negative, because that's when negative things happen usually. So, I'm even right now, on Facebook, she's part of this moms group, and they'll they'll adoption bash in there and like beat on her, and, hey, that's not right. It's all like about traumatic experiences. But in my eyes, I'm not giving them a traumatic experience, because
what? Wait, back up. There's people on Facebook saying you shouldn't adopt children.
Yeah, there's a whole not cult, but there's a whole group about adoption and how it's wrong and how you're oppressing people. And
I mean, I can't think of a greater gift for both the parents and a child than someone adopting someone. I'm so upset for you right now, and so mad. I want to go and beat those people up. I cannot believe there are people out there.
Good thing I don't have Facebook anymore. Yeah, good thing I don't have Facebook anymore. But I feel so ecstatic waking up to him every morning and him smiling at me.
You want to share his
He's a
name?
little
Because I love
kid.
his name.
Yes. So this is a cool story too. So, you know, we had names picked out for each of those birth moms, so we didn't go through with it, those names. So this is the name. It's the eighth most uh, popular name right now for boys.
Is it?
But, yep. So Asher is what we named him. It means miracle from God because he is a miracle from God. You know, we were going to give up and just take a break and say, hey, we're not going to do anything. And then he popped up into our lives. So his middle name's Jacob after my brother that passed away, committed suicide. So um, the tidbit of information that it blows my mind away is Jacob in the Bible. Jacob is Asher's father. And I didn't realize that until I was looking at it after we named him. It was probably like 3 or 4 months after we named him. Jacob is the father of Asher. And I kid you not, he has the same personality as my brother. Very strong-willed, he has no stranger danger. He will say hi to everybody. But I thought that was pretty cool because, you know, I believe in manifestation. That's really close to manifestation. That's my brother's son. So
Oh,
I thought that was
Lee.
cool.
So
So
a lot of paperwork, I imagine. How does somebody get started? So if we have any viewers that are or listeners, I guess, whether on YouTube or the podcast, that are interested in finding out more about adoption and stuff, what tips do you have for them?
get with an adoption group that you really like. Um, like we did Catholic Charities because it was lesser expensive. Um, it's twenty
Well,
thousand
you had
dollars
spent a lot of money on
without.
fertility. You had
Yeah,
spent a lot of money on
yeah, we
fertility
did.
treatments, and so
Yeah,
that's financially exhausting for families, and so trying to
um,
look at something that's in your budget is certainly reasonable.
yeah. There's a couple places out there. There's some places out there that is like 40 to 50,000, but they promote for you, and you'll get a child or a newborn. We did newborn, so it's a lot harder to get a newborn, um,
Okay.
just because of the whole birth mom situation. Um, but Catholic Charities does it. I know it's crazy how many people that you find out that are adopted after you go through the adoption journey. So Catholic Charities, and then it is expensive, but there are grants out there that you can get. So my wife is
What
pretty
kind of
good about
grants?
getting
Can you talk
grants.
about
We
those?
actually
I've never heard of that.
yeah, money grants. So like there's certain um, adoption, like people that help certain people that help out with adoption. So, like for instance, we got like $6,000 for one grant to help towards that cost, go towards that cost. Um, we did got 3 grants. There was one that was based out of Milwaukee that we actually got to go to a dinner to, and we got to bring Asher up, and everyone that donated got to see like the results of what happened. So that was pretty cool.
That's
Um,
amazing. So what
we
is the
actually,
vetting
with all the grant,
process? Pardon?
the the vetting process, um,
What do you
that
have to?
is
I know that the last time I purchased a dog, and I'm an Akita fan, but I mean, my gosh, you'd have thought I was adopting a kid. Like they put me through the ringer, so I can't even imagine for to adopt a child. And I love my dog, but there was a certain size house, a certain size yard, and there was certain income. I mean, it was like crazy. Is there
that
any of that?
you have to have that. Yeah, they go through your personal life through a fine tooth comb. You have to get background checked. I had to take fingerprints. They have to do like 3 or 4 home studies to make sure your house is good. I didn't know that you had to have a smoke detector in every single room of your house, and then a couple carbon monoxide detectors and a fire escape plan you had to have, and you still have to have. So we have that on our fridge, and then you have to have a fire extinguisher in your house, which you should have anyways. Um, you have to. We had to take like 78 hours worth of classes. You pretty much have to become. Um, you have to have all this stuff you have to have done to just even think about adopting. You think it would be easier to adopt, but it's not.
It's kind of crazy. It's people can have children at any time, and many parents get their children taken away and truly are not fit to be parents. And there
Yeah,
aren't any kind of rules or anybody checking them out beforehand. But then sometimes I hear on the other side, it's so difficult, the adoption process, that there should be rules or should be stuff, but it just, some days you have to look and go, holy cow, are they not wanting people to adopt babies? Are they not? It's some of the stuff seems, I don't know, like a lot, but I understand
yeah.
that they're
Well,
placing someone's life in your hands, but
in that class, they teach you you only have to get parenting correctly 33% of the time for your kid to be normal. So that was the coolest thing I learned in that adoption class.
there's some room for error there. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Many times as
Yes.
parents, we put so much stress on ourselves and try to be the perfect parent, and there isn't any such thing. And your kids remember, they know who you are, and they remember what you did for them. So there's all that. So did
Yeah.
the vetting process involve your families at all, or was it just you and your wife?
Yeah. We actually they didn't have to get background checked or anything like that, but we did have to have a couple referrals from non-family, and actually they will call your family and ask questions, and then we actually had to have a couple. We got met 3 times alone to say, hey, you know, are you going? Is your relationship strong? Pretty much. Um, and then they ask about your family. You have to take this test to say, hey, this is basically like a marriage test to say, hey, I'm not going to divorce after, um, we adopt. So
So if I was screening for marriage longevity, I think the number one question would be which way do each of them put the toilet paper on the roll, because
uh,
that seems to cause more fights in marriages than
over the top always.
And does your wife agree with you?
I totally agree. She totally agrees. She knows better.
So how old is Asher now?
He is 16 months as of yesterday. So
Holy cow, that went.
his favorite word to say now is door. He calls everything a door.
And he has
His
a new
poppy, my
cousin, and he
dad.
has,
Yep,
pardon?
yeah, which is crazy because I manifested it kind of, I think, because my sister called and said she was checking in on us. We were in like Bloomington, Indiana. That's the last stop. I was at a Starbucks, and she was like, "Well, I'm going in to get checked. Think I have a cyst on my ovary." And I told her, I was like, "Watch it." I was like, "You're probably pregnant." And I crap you not. They waited. I really appreciate my sister and Amir waiting to, after Asher got introduced and everything, to say, "Hey, we're pregnant."
Oh, how
So
sweet. They didn't tell anybody because
they're
they didn't.
4 months apart. Yeah, they're four
That's
months apart.
amazing.
So
Well, one thing for sure is
so
Asher's growing up in a house and a family, and immediate family and extended family with a lot of love to give. So I can't
he's the
imagine
only
a.
grand. He's the only yeah. He's the only grandson too. So on both sides. So He's a little
Ah,
spoiled, rotten kid right now, but he deserves it.
that's
Totally
amazing.
deserves it.
I
I
really appreciate
so
you sharing.
yeah. One last thing. Uh, so waiting that long for a child really changed my my mentality. I was always like, I always wanted that child, but now I'm just like, well, he comes first, because he's my son. He's hopefully going to be the heir to what me and my dad are, uh, you know, giving
Building.
him a legacy, um, building him something. He loves to go into the shop, so he always as every time he comes to my wife comes to stop the shop. He points and says he wants to go in, see all the trucks and cars, and talk to everybody. So it's awesome. But
He's a social
you
butterfly,
know,
right?
yeah, your life changes because I never I was like, you never would have thought that, now, hey, I have a kid now. I feel like if you have kids earlier, you're like, oh, I want to go out and do all this stuff I don't get to do. But I had 15 years to do all that stuff. So like I would rather spend every waking moment with my family, with him, with my wife, than, going out and, we're traveling the world. So we already took him to a couple places already. So I want to make sure that he gets to do all that stuff. I, me as a child got to do that, but he's the only child. I'm probably going to be the only child we have unless we adopt again, which we got hit up with 2 or 3 times already for adoption because uh, it's easier once you know someone that stuff happens where that happens all the time.
So
But
that's an interesting thing. So once you're vetted and you are able to adopt your baby, then you're kind of on a good list or a go-to list when something comes up.
um, we there's a place in North Carolina that like adoption happens a lot more often than most places. So we just know someone there that can that helps us out there. But um, just a heads up, just to make sure that they don't go to the the system. But you actually have to get home study approved again. I don't, certain states have certain laws. Like I don't even think you have to have an adoption agency in North Carolina. You just have to have a lawyer. So that's one thing that happened to me. Like within a day, I got dinged because my wife bought something out in California, and then we're out in North Carolina. I had to drop $1,500 on a lawyer. So but no, you have to get home studied again, and I think just to make sure everything's good. I don't think it's you have to go through the total rigmarole, like the total thing over again. You'd have to ask my wife on that, but um, I'm pretty
I
sure
don't
that you
know.
still
I
have to
just
get
have
home.
a feeling that Asher will not be an only child. I just have this feeling.
I don't know.
Could be wrong.
He's too perfect. He's too perfect for me.
He is perfect.
They
You're
say
very
that
blessed. He's a
second child. They
beautiful.
say that second child is not as good as the first.
I'll tell you, the second
I
one
don't
gives
know
you a
though.
run
I'm
for
not.
your money. I don't know how. I
You
think
get
the universe messes with you and is like, let's make the first one really good, and so you have more. And then
yeah,
the next one's like,
probably.
holy cow! You don't realize what double
Yeah,
the work is. It's much more than double the
yeah.
work for sure.
I
But
just I want to be able to give him everything and more because he deserves it. You know what I mean? He is a very good kid and very loved. So
yes, he is. He is.
I just can't
So
wait to see him grow.
I know it'll be
Go
amazing.
ahead.
It'll be amazing. So with we just so for anybody listening that might be wanting to go down this path or looking on it, to get together with some kind of an agency or someone that can help steer you with the ropes. Look for any grants online for or to help you
Yeah,
with some of the finances. Don't give
which
the
Catholic chairs?
birth mother monies?
Yes. Try not to. As much as you can now, because you don't get that money back. So
And keep the
there's a
faith.
fine line. Yep, keep the faith. You know, it's a long journey, and you'll have create. We did it differently. We wanted a newborn, so we went down that road where we had to talk to a woman that was pregnant. So we went down that road where they might keep it, they might not, they might be scamming you. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there that will tell you there's scammers out there. We went through Facebook. That's because that was the quickest route, they said, for Catholic Charities. So it was lesser
When
money.
you say you went through Facebook, what does that mean?
We had a Facebook adoption page and an Instagram adoption page.
So people could come, prospective parents of or birth mothers could go and look at your information. Is that, am I understanding that?
Yep.
Okay.
And then someone found it and said, hey, aren't they looking for a child? And they called, and I said, yes, we're coming to get them. So it was the craziest 24-hour period in my life. So, and then to open and close adoption, like they wanted to do a closed adoption, but Catholic Charities, any adoption agency wants you to do open adoption. So that means,
which, can you explain what that is for our listeners in case they don't know?
Yep. Open adoption is telling your child, your adopted child, that he is adopted, that you're not his birth mom or birth dad. So being open with him and telling him his story and where everyone is. So, which we've told Asher plenty of times about his birth mom, and he's not at the age yet to understand, but we just keep telling him, and that nothing changes. He's still loved by his family, by us, 110%, because that can cause trauma if you keep a closed adoption and don't tell him. So closed adoption is basically you're not telling him he's adopted, and that basically you're in blood relation with him.
Which, with today's Ancestry.com and all of that, to try to keep that a secret these days, I mean, I would imagine it would be very traumatic for somebody 18 or 19 or 30 or 50 to find out that they were adopted. I've seen things like that and talked to somebody about that, and they said they felt like their entire life was a lie. That, to find out all those years later.
Yeah. And
I
like in those classes, they tell you that that's adopted children have traumatic experiences from like even the womb, because they're not it could be drug related, or be a young mom, or something bad happened and they have that trauma through the womb,
Well, and I imagine that anyone giving up their child for adoption has to have some very strong feelings and emotions that go along with making that decision. And typically when someone's giving someone up for adoption, it's because the time in their life doesn't work for it, or their situation. And so, I mean, if you're stressed or upset or whatever all the time, that definitely transmutes right to whatever's going on in your body. So
the
good news is you have a beautiful baby boy that is just smart as a whip, and you can see just loves life, loves everything, and
his giggle is the best. His giggle is so awesome. It just lights up the entire room. And he's that kid. He's 16 months old. He's that kid that says hi to everybody. My wife thinks it's weird, but I'm just trying to teach him how to be a nice guy and say hi to everybody.
Your wife thinks it's weird that your 16-month-old says hi to people?
Well, no, I just tell him. I'm like, say hi. I'm just trying to get him to like love everybody. You know what I mean?
Be nice to everybody. That's wonderful.
We
need more of that in the world. We need more of that in the world, Lee. So.
Oh yeah, the world's a hateful place, and I'm just trying to show them that, there's so much positives in this world. You don't have to be always hateful or upset about everything.
I love it. I love it. Well, I so appreciate you sharing your story. I don't even know what my eye makeup looks like right now, because I've been tearing up the whole time.
It's such an amazing experience once it happens, though. If you have any questions, I'll give you my LinkedIn. You can message me or anything like that. But just remember, short or slow and steady wins the race. It's not going to happen overnight. We got lucky and knew somebody that contacted us that said about it, but everyone I talked to said adoption's like a 3 to 5 year process. So unless you know somebody that you're going to adopt. So they say overseas is less expensive, but I read up on it. I wanted to adopt Ukraine before all the war stuff came up, and you have to stay in the country for 2 weeks before you get let go. So it is lesser expensive probably, but you still have to take off that time, 2 weeks off of work just to go home after, just to adopt.
Well, luckily there's a lot of agencies out there and people wanting to help put babies and children of all ages with families that are in loving homes. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing your story. And it's been amazing to watch from the outside and see it transpire. And I'm filled with love and joy and hope, and there's just so many good people out there and so many good things happening. And so thank you again for joining me, Lee. I'll put all the contact information for Lee and some things on adoption agencies and all in the comments. If you have any questions, you can obviously reach out to me, or I can get you in touch with Lee. If you want to appear on a future podcast to talk about this some more, I would love to have it, because these are real things that happen in people's lives. And, part of being a business owner, you're also a person, and people have personal things happening. It's not just, can't just be everything business. So everybody stay safe, make good choices, stay inspired, and I will be back next week. And Lee, thank you again for sharing your story.
Remember everybody, manifest it. Manifest it.
All right, you heard it from Lee. Manifest it. Bye-bye.